I've been having a ton of fun teaching some of you how to do the Crota's End raid over on Twitch, but I regularly see people struggling to understand how the Chalice of Light works. With the Chalice being a primary mechanic in every encounter of the raid, I figured I'd make a quick guide going over the Chalice in detail that I can have my viewers watch before joining one of my Sherpa runs. This is the Chalice of Light. You can interact with it to pick it up. Doing so will start filling the meter in your buff section. This meter will fill over time, but anyone defeating enemies will cause the meter to accelerate. At any time while you're holding the Chalice, another player can interact with you to take the Chalice away from you. However, you usually want to time this appropriately. This is what I call a preserve podium. The first encounter has multiple of these, all other encounters only have one. You are able to preserve the Chalice by interacting with the podium while holding the Chalice. Preserving the Chalice lets you store it to be picked up at a later time. These are not to be mistaken with the location the Chalice spawns for that encounter. Each encounter has a Chalice spawn point that the Chalice cannot be deposited back into. The preserve podium is always separate from the Chalice spawn. If someone takes the Chalice away from you before the meter fills up, you will not receive any buffs or debuffs when they do so, which means you would be able to take it back from them at any time. This is what we call juggling and can be useful at times. I'll come back to that in a second. If you let the Chalice meter fill up, you will gain the Engulfed and Light debuff starting at 10 seconds and counting down. If you fail to preserve the Chalice or have a teammate take the Chalice away from you before that timer expires, you will die. If you successfully have a teammate take the Chalice away from you before your Engulfed and Light timer runs out, you will become Enlightened. Enlightened is what allows each encounter to progress, usually done by depositing it into a plate, picking up a sword, or going through a wall, but it's not always a good thing to become Enlightened. While you are Enlightened, you are unable to pick up the Chalice again. You are also unable to pick up the Chalice when you are drained of light. What is drained of light? You get this debuff for 45 seconds anytime you deposit the Chalice into a preserve location, regardless of how full the meter is, or when you do something that consumes your Enlightened buff, such as depositing it into a plate, depositing it into a lantern, picking up a sword, or going through a wall in the Ear Ute encounter. The only way to get rid of Enlightened without getting the Drained of Light debuff is by expunging on a boss. Not being able to pick up the Chalice can cause some issues, especially if your teammate is holding the Chalice and needs you to take it from them so they don't die to their Engulfed and Light timer. This is where juggling the Chalice can be useful. If you have one other teammate near you, or maybe there are more of you but no way to consume the Enlightened buff quick enough, and nowhere you can preserve the Chalice, you can keep passing the Chalice back and forth between two players indefinitely, so long as the meter never fills up on either player. There's obviously more to the specific encounters in Crota's End, but hopefully this helps you understand the way the Chalice itself works a little bit better.